Hey everyone, this is the second of 6 capsules on the intellectual operations, and today we are working with identify similarities and differences. So if we jump into it, we've already seen this in the first capsule, so we're not going to really look at this again. Just to remind you, we are working with the identify similarities and differences IO, which is second on the list. So if we take a broad view of what this intellectual operation is, these questions or this skill will usually ask students to compare and contrast a society over time or two societies to each other in the same time period. So what you're looking at here on the right is the same society over time, and that's Montreal in the 1640s versus Montreal in the 1830s. If you look at point number 2, it usually asks them to compare and contrast things like territory, politics, and ideas. So again, in this case, it is the territory or the landscape. And so if you put these two ideas together, they're in this particular question, they're being asked to compare Montreal over time, Montreal's territory over time. So here we have the development guide. This will give you an idea of a beginner, intermediate, and advanced version of these questions. So we're using Athenian or Greek democracy here as our example. So a beginner similarity and differences question for Greek democracy would look something like this. You might get two documents, one of a man voting at a cleriterion and the other document of a slave attending to her mistress. And so students will have to put something together like in ancient Greece, some could vote while others, specifically slaves, could not. So this would be a difference. If you look at an intermediate version of a similar question, again, we're working with Athenian democracy and we're comparing it to the Canadian democratic process. So in this case, there's a similarity, not a difference, in that Canadian democracy is similar to Athenian democracy in that people can vote. And finally, if we look at a more advanced version of this same question, we see that students will be able to identify similarities and differences between opinions of historical actors. This is usually quite challenging, especially as compared to the beginner and intermediate one. There's a big jump here in difficulty. So after reading both of the documents, students should be able to say Pericles believes in that democracy is good because it gives the many the power, whereas Xenophon is against democracy because it gives the poor and uneducated too much power. So they should be able to pick this out from the short quotes here. And that's a developmental guide for the Identify Similarities and Differences IO. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed it.